guys to the review of our Arizona Coues deer hunt. This spot that we went to, I had been to previously, and so this was my second time back there, and my first time out there. I saw a buck, but never really got an opportunity at one, and I was just kind of learning the area and honing in on this spot where turns out there was a lot of Coues deer there. And so we went out there, what, a day or two early for that hunt, I think?
Yeah, roughly. I think it might have been 3 days.
Yeah.
Not sure.
So we went out there 3 days early, and my buddy Dalen, he came out and joined us. We picked him up on the way. So Dalen's lived in Arizona his whole life and hunted Coues deer down there before, so he had a little bit more experience and knowledge than we have as far as hunting Coues deer goes. The first night out there, though, we had a big storm come through, and we set up this old tent that we had just so that way it could sleep all of us, and that tent just completely got destroyed.
It got shredded. I mean, you guys saw it in the first episode. Like, I wish we would have got more footage, but we were so worried about, getting all our gear together and keeping our sleeping bags dry and whatnot. We weren't even worried about filming at the time, but man, it was so funny because the tent was just collapsing on us, and we didn't even realize how bad it was till we got up in the morning and got out of the tent, and we were like, oh my gosh. And it was just totally collapsed on us. It was so bad.
Yeah, we were all just completely soaked, and I wrapped up in a tarp, and I think Braden wrapped up in a tarp a little bit, or a trash bag. I don't remember, but
I had a contractor bag over me.
And then halfway through the night, Mom got out and she went and climbed in the back of the truck so that way she could stay dry and get a little bit of sleep, because on her side of the tent it was completely laid down against the ground, and on our side it was just barely standing still.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So we went and put that tent in the dumpster. It was done for, and I brought a couple other little tents with us, and so we went and set up those little tents.
Yep.
And then we went out and did a little bit of scouting, which we were seeing some deer in this spot that I'd found previously, and then go to the first day of the hunt. We start seeing some deer, and then this little buck here is the first buck that we end up seeing.
Yeah. So day one of the hunt is when we saw this little buck right here. And up to this point in our hunting season, I hadn't gotten anything, and I also haven't gotten any animals in a long time, due to being in the Marines and stuff. I just didn't have any life or time to go hunting, and so I just wanted to get a buck down, and I just wanted to secure that animal and secure that tag, and know I have it in place, because I didn't want to get skunked, so, which I was probably being a little too rushed, but I just wanted a buck. I wasn't too worried about what buck it was. But anyways, we saw this little guy right here, and so I was like, you know what, let's just go after him, because that's the first buck we've seen, and I want a buck. As you guys saw, we went and made a play on him, and we didn't really show it much on camera, but we snuck up this hill a good mile or so, maybe farther than that. We were just sneaking our way up this hill, and it was a pain in the butt too, because we were just walking through this thick, dry grass, so it was super loud. And but anyways, we got up there, and we were seeing the little herd of deer that he was with. He was with a bunch of does, and we were seeing them, but couldn't quite see him for most of the time. But we got up into position, laid down, and then he stepped out. And when he first stepped out and I was lined up for a shot, there was actually a doe standing right behind him, so I couldn't shoot. But as you guys saw in the video, it's like the second the doe steps out of the way, Devin's like, you can take that shot, and then I shoot right after, because I was already lined up and ready, just waiting for that doe to move. So yeah, we landed him, bagged him. Like we said in the video, unfortunately he didn't die right away, because since I was shooting uphill, it went in through one lung and then up and out through the spine, and so he was still breathing a little bit out of that one lung. But we got up to him, put a second round in him just to put him down quickly. He would have died either way, but we just wanted to, you know, put him down humanely and get it over with. But yeah, I mean, this is my first little Coues deer buck. He's not big by any standard whatsoever. When I got him though, we didn't realize he had little brow tines here, so we were all really excited that he had brow tines. So that was a pretty cool little feature, because we were thinking he was just the single spikes, but when you're shooting something that small, it's pretty cool when they even have one little point sticking off of there. But yeah, so that was the first buck in the first day, so that was pretty exciting, and we were like, man, we're off to a good start. And we were seeing tons and tons of Coues deer up to this point. Not a lot of bucks at first. This was, like I said, this was the only buck we saw that day. Granted, if we would have kept glassing, there's a possibility we would have seen other bucks or not. But it was really exciting getting a buck down first day. Neither of us have ever gotten an animal down on our first day, besides maybe some small game or something like that, but never a deer on opening day. So we were excited about that. And then moving on to the second day, I'll let Devin go ahead and cover that part.
Yeah, so the end of day one, we packed this buck out, and we didn't see any other bucks, and so we go in and we're hunting the same general area, and I think it was just about first thing in the morning, maybe just a little bit later in the morning, Dalen spots a couple of bucks, just one drainage over from where we got this buck. And so there was two bucks in there, the buck that I got and one smaller buck. And so Brayden and I made a plan to go work in there. We get up, we work around this hillside and get up on top to where we can see down in there. We end up seeing the smaller buck, but the bigger buck was bedded down and just stayed bedded down for a long time. And so we got set up and we just waited him out until he stood up. And as he was so well hidden where he was bedded down at, that we could have probably spotted him, but man, we just could not find him. But we knew like the tree and bush that he was behind were near, so we were just watching that. And then as soon as he stood up, we were on him. The rifle was set up and ready to go. And so that one happened pretty smooth and pretty quick. And so I took this buck right here. And so this is my first Coues deer buck. Nice wide buck, some good mass, but he doesn't have much length up top. So he's kind of short up top. But I was super stoked about that. And so this buck was down on the hillside. We could see him drop, and we could see him go down. And so we just took our time to work our way around to go and get him, because it was a pretty deep drainage. We couldn't just drop straight down and go across, so we had to work around. And the smaller buck that he was with, which wasn't a tiny buck, it was still a decent buck, but the smaller buck that he was with had dropped out of our view before even shooting this buck. And so after we shot, we figured that he was gone. We all just walked around there like normal. And then we get up to where this buck was at, and we start dragging him down to the shade. And then all of a sudden, the smaller buck busts up out of the bottom of the drainage, I don't know, 50 yards from where we were at.
Maybe less.
Yeah, maybe
pretty
less.
Close.
And Dalen saw it because Dalen was hiking up the drainage to come meet up with us. And so all this just happened in an instant. Like Dalen's hiking up the drainage. This buck bumps out. Dalen sees it first, and it's maybe 50 yards or less away from us.
Yeah.
And so we scramble and try to get my mom on it to take a shot, but that buck never stopped moving. It was just running and booking it out of there. So we never got an opportunity at that buck. But we got this buck taken care of and got back to the truck. And then we were glassing that same evening, and we see that smaller buck. But it was a little too late in the evening to go and make a play on it. But we were able to relocate the smaller buck that this buck was with. So the next morning, after we got this buck, so that would be on to day 3 now. We go back to the exact same spot. We're kind of all spread out doing some glassing, trying to relocate that smaller buck, and my mom spots a couple of deer that she thinks are bucks, and so I hurry over to her because we're all kind of spread out from what I remember, and I go over to where she's at to look at these bucks and glass up on the hill, and I don't see him for very long. I just see him for a short time, and I see this buck, which is a good buck, and then I just see this giant buck. It looks like a mule deer buck. It was huge.
It was a massive Coues deer.
Yeah, it was just a massive Coues deer. I'm not great at scoring them and judging them, but man, it had to have been 110, 115 inch Coues deer for sure. It was just giant.
It looked like that whitetail right there.
Yeah, it was huge. It was wide. It had a ton of length up top. The eye guards looked like they were 6 or 8 inch eye guards. It was just a giant buck. So we get all excited, but these bucks kind of slip up and over the hill to where we can't see them. And so we go and get set up to watch the drainage that they went into. And I don't even remember how long it was, the amount of time that went by before we could find them again.
Yeah, it was quite a while.
Yeah, it felt like it was like 3-ish hours or something like that.
Yeah.
From the time these bucks went over the hill, and we weren't sure exactly that they had gone over the hills, so we all spread out to try and get as many angles looking into this spot as possible to try and relocate these bucks, because there was this buck, a good buck in there, and then there was that really good buck in there.
Yeah.
That we wanted to try and find and relocate. And so it was about, I'd say about 3 hours before we spotted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were looking for a long time.
Another buck. We were looking for a really long time. Yeah. And it was my buddy Dalen that spotted him, and he spotted this buck up moving around. Mm-hmm. Which turns out they did slip over the hill. They were on this north-facing slope. There was a lot of brush on it, and so it was really difficult to see in there. But we had gotten their location and made a plan to make a stalk in there. And once we got over there, we would decide we'd look around and see what buck we could see and decide from there, what buck we'd try and take. Obviously, we're going to try and get that big one.
If I remember correctly too, I don't think we were able to tell from the distance we were at, because we were pretty far away. I don't think we were able to tell which one was which at the time, and so we saw this one and we weren't sure if this was the big one or not because of the distance. You just can't tell. You just could see antlers, and so at the time we didn't know which one was which, and we didn't know which one we were actually going after. So just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah. So we worked our way around. We went down a creek and then up the opposite hillside. Well, up the back of the opposite hillside from where these bucks were at. Mm-hmm. And we came out on top, and we were too far away. We were about 500 yards away. So we worked around the backside of this mountain, and off the backside of it, it's just straight cliffs back there.
Yeah, just completely clipped off. Like, it's so vertical. It's terrible.
So we're within that 400 to 500 yards, but we needed to get just a little bit closer. So we're working along the top side of this cliff, and the hillside's just incredibly steep right before it goes to cliffs, and it's covered in rocks and boulders, just like everything is. And somehow, I have no idea how we did it.
Yeah, it was very impressive.
But we took our time working across this super steep slope right above this hill. Somehow, none of us out of the 3 of us, me, Brayton, and my mom, did not kick or roll a rock down off this cliff.
The whole time.
Which, if we would have kicked a rock off, it would have probably blown out the whole thing. And so, somehow we managed to not have that happen.
Yeah, not a single pebble fell down the cliffside. We were walking very carefully, and it was very impressive that we were able to get that done without knocking any rocks down or anything like that.
Yeah, I was quite surprised. So we work our way up. We come up over the hill, and we're within 300 yards of where we think that these bucks are. And so we get all set up, and I'm just scanning with my binos. I'm just glassing this small section of the hillside where Dalen kind of walked us into, and he's like, yeah, dude, they're right behind, these couple trees or this group of trees. So I'm just sitting there scanning it. He's like, the buck's up on his feet, and I still can't see the buck just because of the two different angles.
Couldn't see the thing.
I'm looking at it from here, and Dalen's almost all the way, well, can't see my hand, but all the way over here looking at it, and so he's got a completely different angle. So from my angle, the buck was completely behind a tree. So we sat there for a while.
It was a good 45 minutes that we sat there waiting for the buck to pop out, and we knew it was there because Dalen told us, but we just could not see it. We were both scanning all over the place like crazy looking for this buck and just could not find it. So
yeah, but we got set up because we knew the buck was still there. So mom gets all set up, the rifle's dialed in, and she goes and takes a shot. She had time because the buck was just standing there doing its thing, and so she takes a shot. But I see when she shoots that she hits it in the front leg and shot the front leg off, right about where the joint was. So she didn't hit it in the torso at all. And the buck goes just a short distance and then stops again. And so I told her, I didn't tell her where she had hit it, I just told her, hey, you hit it, shoot again. And so she reloads, takes her time and then shoots it again, and then it just drops right where it's at. So still killed it pretty quick, unfortunately. Yeah, it's this buck here. Unfortunately hit it in the leg with the first shot, but the second shot was clean and killed it really quickly. And so we see the deer's down. Dalen starts making his way over to come meet up with us, and then we start making our way over to this buck. So while doing all this, while Dalen's making his way over and while we're making our way to the buck, Dalen calls us up on the radio and tells us that he sees the giant buck that this buck was with. And so we had decided to take this buck because we could never relocate that huge buck that was in there. And we didn't know if that huge buck was gone or if he was just bedded in there and we couldn't see him. So we decided to take this buck because it's still a good buck that Mom was happy with taking. But that giant buck, Dalen saw it and it popped up, and it was probably within 50 yards of where this buck was at, laying down. And so even after we had shot twice, that giant buck still just stayed laying there. So yeah, Dalen got to see that giant buck too, and he's like, dude, that's the biggest Coues deer I've ever seen, and he has way more experience hunting than we do. So yeah, that was awesome.
We chalked it up to probably being a Boone and Crockett Coues deer more than likely. So it was really big.
So we get over there, take care of this buck, get it all cut up, and so that would be the third buck in 3 days.
Yep.
And so I've never been on a hunt where it works out quite like that.
Yeah, we were just immensely successful. It was really awesome. This buck is pretty cool too. This is our mom's buck, like we said. It's not quite as wide as Devon's. Yeah, we can compare them side by side. It's not quite as wide as Devon's, but you can see the antlers just curl like crazy, like almost 180 degrees. And then it's got a cool little brow tine right here. It's kind of all nubby. And then up here at this top fork right here, it's all nubbed out too. It's blunted and it's got like a little ball on there. And then it's got a short little fork over here too. So it's a pretty cool buck. I really like it. I think this one's my favorite out of the three. So yeah, definitely.
It has a lot of length up top here too.
Yeah, it does. The top tines are really long. So this one's pretty cool. Devon's is super awesome as well, but I like this one the best, I think.
Yeah, it's a cool buck for sure. So yeah, that was 3 bucks in 3 days, and this hunt was probably, they're all so different. Like I got my first bull elk, and that was a backcountry backpacking hunt, and then we had some other hunts like in Texas, and it's just a totally different style of hunt. But this hunt was probably my favorite hunt of the season, just because there was a lot of action. We were looking over a lot of deer. We saw several bucks and one amazing buck that we're definitely going to go back for next season. So we're planning on going back. So this spring we went out on a black bear hunt to this exact same spot, and while we were down there, we spotted a buck, a Coues deer buck, that was probably as wide as this one, maybe if not just a little bit wider, but had a ton of length up top, and just a beautiful buck. So bigger than either of these ones that we got, but still not that giant buck. So next fall we're planning on going back.
Yeah,
because there's still a couple of really good bucks
for sure.
In this area, better than either of these, bucks. So we're pretty excited to get back to this spot and go and check it out. But
yeah, I'm not shooting a little dinky next time. I promise. I'll
Yeah.
shoot a big one. I think this is gonna be like my size limitation. So if it's smaller than that or this size, I'm not shooting it. If it's bigger, then I will.
you're gonna hold out for something a little bit better next time.
Yeah, now that we know, like, cause I mean, I'd never hunted there, so I didn't know how many big bucks there were in there. So I was like, I don't want to miss out on getting a buck. So I shot the first one I saw, which I shouldn't have done, but you know, hindsight.
That's all right, but it was still awesome, and it was super cool to get the 3 bucks in 3 days.
Yeah, that part was awesome.
Yeah, which I had never done, so that was super fun. And so that kind of wraps up our Arizona Coues deer hunt. That's kind of the inside information on it for you guys. So thank you for watching, and thank you for your guys' support, and make sure to like and comment and subscribe to the channel. All that helps us out a lot, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think the next hunt we have coming up on the series is the Colorado elk hunt. That one was pretty fun too. So stay tuned for that, and we'll catch you guys next time.
So we're just out scouting a couple days before the season. Yesterday evening we saw a couple of cows. Oh, there's elk sign and elk tracks.